Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Madison Jonathan from MLC Tech, and oh boy, doesn't it feel like it's 2020 again? But instead of all of your PlayStations and graphics cards being scalped up, it's all of your RAM. And now, AI data centers, as we know, are already swallowing up so much of the world's memory output that automated scalping operations are now crawling the world supply chain itself. But that's not just from retail DDR5 kits, but this is also industrial grade modules and parts. Following a recent campaign by bot mitigation firm DataStorm shows how specific web scrapers tuned just for RAM pricing can quietly hit product pages tens of thousands of times per hour while staying under the traditional conventional defense thresholds for bot mitigation. So it's just not your traditional scalpers that are eyeing up for retail kits to then resell onto you on marketplaces such as eBay, it's business to business competing. Now, it has been reported by DataStorm that a single scalping operation has been hammering memory listeners requests of roughly every 6.5 seconds, averaging more than 500 automated hits per page and exceeding 50,000 requests per hour across targeted sites. It is stated that in their research they found that they have blocked more than 10 million requests from just this one bot alone, all aimed at extracting fresh pricing and stock data for DDR5 RAM and all the related components in building the modules themselves. And as we hinted out earlier, it's not just consumer-facing SKUs that these bots are trying to all scalp up, it's also multiple tiers of the memory pipeline, so that including the DIMM sockets themselves, the CAM2 connectors, and industrial memory modules typically only sold in B2B environments. For example, you can't just go to the shop and say, "Oh, hello, I would like 24 gigabytes of GDDR6, but chips." You can't just go and do that. You can't just buy the individual chips. You have to buy an overall package at retail. So the fact that businesses are having to use bots to buy these components just goes to show how constrained and how in demand RAM is in total at the moment. The fact that typical consumers can't buy it and businesses are using bots and scalpers, so you also still can't buy it. Now, as we saw in the era of 2020 with the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, graphics cards, there was a massive scalping issue where a lot of companies learnt from that era and implemented bot mitigation detection methods to ensure that scalpers still can't buy them all up, even though we saw with the likes of the 50 series launch about how bots ran rampant across the entire web. But these professional RAM bots have implemented certain mechanisms to reduce the chance of detection. For example, the operation that DataStorm has uncovered uses a day-night request pattern that mimics human browsing behaviour rhythms with traffic that appears to follow daily cycles but actually remains unnaturally flat and calibrated. Request rates are tuned to stay just below volumetric alert thresholds that many e-commerce and distribution platforms use to flag abuse. So how does this bot actually work? Well, this specific bot relies heavily on what is called cache busting. Now, each HTTP request appends a unique parameters so that servers treat the visit as a fresh page load rather than serving a cached version of that website, cached content. So it's seen as a unique, brand new individual visit, not this one address, this one person's one bot in this case, is refreshing the page multiple times to ensure that they can get most up-to-date pricing and so they can beat out anyone else trying to buy this component. So it tricks the website into thinking that it's a unique visit for the first time, guaranteeing up to the second pricing and stock information ahead of the stale data. Now, sessions are short and mechanical, so it's a single product page followed by immediate exit, no client interaction, no search queries, and no lateral movement throughout the site. Now, despite there being human-like pacing with these bots, there have been several signals that point clearly to the automation of this. Now, the traffic focuses almost exclusively on RAM listings and does not shift towards any other category, even when the site offers a full product stack of other hardware listings as well. There are also no organic usage patterns such as reduced traffic on weekends or peaks during early hour evenings, typically when most humans would go online, browse and do their shopping, usually when they finish work. Instead, the volume of this bot traffic drops sharply only when a bot encounters a technical issue, then snaps back to full capacity once the issue has been resolved. That kind of step function behavior is not really seen with human users. Now, the whole operations focus on DIMM sockets highlights just how sensitive the market has become to component level constraints in the DDR5 ecosystem. It's not just the finished product, it's every single component that goes into making the finished product. Now, traditional desktops and server builds rely on standard DIMM slots, so being able to probe the socket availability can provide early signals of which platforms vendors are about to face tighter supplies. But it's not just DIMM sockets that they are targeting, it's also CAM2. Now, this is the newer compression attached memory module standard, and CAM2 is also designed to deliver high density memory in thinner form factors. CAM2 also is posed to deliver higher clock speeds and reduced latency due to the CAM2 connector being much shorter in terms of the physical traces and the technology behind it. And this has been seen as a viable alternative for laptops and compact systems too, where typically they rely heavily on the fact that they rely on the iGPU. They have a shared memory pool between the CPU and the GPU, so having RAM that's as fast as possible is very important. That's why you see in a lot of laptops the memory has to be soldered due to the fact, whereas CAM2 Pros to be a bit of alternative that still allows a form of socketed memory while still offering improved frequency and latency gains. And because of this, we have seen adoption into next generation client devices and some edge compute designs as well. But industrial memory modules do add a different angle to this whole story. So these parts are traditionally targeted for embedded devices, networking devices, industrial PCs, where things such as temperature support, long life cycle availability, and reliability requirements matter way more than peak bandwidth. That's why you'll see a lot of server manufacturers there prioritize purely capacity and reliability rather than trying to get the highest speeds that they possibly can out of DDR5, which is a whole other issue of DDR5, where DDR5 memory was originally designed just for server use cases, and then it trickled down to the typical desktop use case, where manufacturers then take this RAM specifically designed for server environment use, and then they tried to, up the clock speeds, overclocking gamers, people at home, you want the fastest speed, etc. And this introduced a whole load of issues with people's systems, particularly DDR5 being extremely sensitive to heat. So when you increase the frequency on those chips, the sensitivity to heat becomes even greater. But back to the topic at hand, the scraping of industrial SKUs and B2B catalogs suggests the operation is not just limited to gaming rigs or enthusiast builds, as we touched on earlier. It's tracking the hardware that underpins infrastructure and operational technology. As I hinted to begin with, it's not just, it's the retailers trying to scalp you and the consumer at home who wants just to build a gaming system. You're gonna not be able to get your gaming RAM kits even though it's already so overpriced at the moment that no one can afford it. It's just made it even harder for anyone to, even if you're able to spend that extra money, it's made it almost impossible for just any normal person to be able to buy a retail DDR5 kit, which is just a shocking sign of the industry and just how bad of a state the world of RAM really is in. As if retail kits were already price gouged enough, the supply was already limited enough, the fact that then we got scalpers into the mix as well, not just your Microns, your SK Hyneses, your Samsung saying, everyone wants our chip, so whoever pays more can get the guaranteed supply. It's gone way beyond that. It's also things that have already been made, already shipped off, already have that marked up price, and then for scalpers to then compete amongst each other, especially because it's business to business as well, trying to maximize their profits, to then sell on to other business to business ventures. They don't care about you at home. They're not doing this because they want to price gouge someone on Facebook Marketplace or price gouge someone on eBay or other retail listings. It's purely price gouging amongst business to business users too, which drives up the price even more because the margins that businesses then take into consideration when they're buying stuff, they can easily extend that margin way beyond what anyone can already afford. And we thought it was bad. For example, the PlayStation 5 Pro 30th Anniversary Edition Apparently Scalper bots got onto that listing, and the resale listing of this PlayStation 5 was about 3 to 6 times the original pricing on secondary markets. And that's just scalpers in the retail consumer space, let alone these RAM scalping bots that are buying specifically for business and enterprise use. And because of this supply constraint of everyone trying to get hold of AI data center hardware, we have seen the trend with high-end GPUs as well. For example, the NVIDIA RTX 5090 GPU that I bought at launch for its original MSRP price, were listed for up to 2 to 3 times the MSRP just a few days after launch. I was so lucky I was able to get one at retail. But yeah, that was a crazy story. But if we even look at the pricing of 5090s today, they have shot up significantly because they are probably the cheapest card you can get for an AI data center that you can just load up on. If we take a look at the current state of the DDR5 market for you people at home, which is the majority of people watching, I doubt a business or large enterprise is watching me because they want to know what's happening in the industry. They already know, they've got bots to make sure they know long before I do. But let's take a look at this from eBay listings for high-end memory kits. They found prices were climbing from roughly around $118 to roughly $430 at just retail prices alone. With scalpers then reselling the same kit for more than $830 on average. And we're not talking about, $830 for 96 gigabytes of RAM? No. We're talking only like 32 gigabytes. For $830. That is crazy. Which is over 7 times its original value before even shortages set in. For example, if I was to sell the RAM in my current system for, of course, brand new retail prices, not factoring second-hand prices, if I sold it today, given the current prices from what I paid for it, that was at the start of last year. Now they're worth, well, over 1,500, close to 2,000, especially because I got the more faster version. Crazy. And as we all know, behind the scene, behind all of this scalping, behind all this limited supply of memory is all because of the massive boom and scale towards AI workloads and AI data centers and enterprise data centers. So you at home can't have hardware. You got to rely and eat into the palms of the people at, I don't know, OpenAI, Anthropic, other cloud providers. NVIDIA has a lot of cloud provisions as well. Amazon are also a big player in the cloud compute space too, where you will own nothing and you will eat out of the palm of whatever you're fed. It's a way, of course, to prioritize AI workloads, the big boom and technical development of AI, but also to keep consumers under control, so you're always at their mercy and beck and call regardless of what you want to do. With AI data centers on track to consume about 70% of the world's memory chip output in 2026, and it's reported good old Sam Altman has apparently secured about 40% of that. So OpenAI has about 40% of the world's supply. The other rest is data centers, and the 30% is for you peasants at home who can't afford the RAM to begin with. And even if you can afford the RAM, you're most likely in the top 10% of earners and spenders in your country to begin with, as we saw with recent publications based on retail consumer spendings about how roughly the top 10% of earners account for more than 50% of retail and consumer spending. So, and that's just memory alone. We've already seen constrained supply on consumer PC hardware, and that's not just for people who want desktops at home. We've also seen in the compute space constraints on automotive hardware and consumer electronics that still rely on a mix of legacy and newer DRAM components. There is so much pressure for the likes of Micron, Samsung, and Galaxy to bring more fabs and production lines online. But such memory facilities typically take years and years to be able to implement and build, because you've got to do the planning, you've got to build all the machines, you've got to think of all the logistics staffing, and then the physical time to build, you got to equip those factories, you got to train everything. Yeah, we're not going to see more manufacturing come online anytime soon, and it's possible that we might not even see much more manufacturing capacity be expanded, because It is still feared that this will be an AI bubble that will pop. On the topic of the AI bubble popping, I didn't see it as a big pop. So, for example, you're not going to wake up, stocks crashed, everything's crashed, the bubble has burst. I don't see it as one day you're going to wake up, oh, good news, RAM prices are back. The bubble popping isn't a real thing, and anyone spouting that it's going to be popping anytime soon, quite frankly, doesn't know what they're talking about and are just hoping for their idealistic world to come true. It's not going to happen. Though what I do see happening is that we will see the air bubble shrink and shrink and shrink to the point it will be at a more sustainable level. Of course, if it keeps growing, then we could see that pop back down, then that shrinkage. Some companies might, but the entire sector as a whole, the bubble isn't just going to... If they spend all this time developing new manufacturing capacity, by the time they come online, the demand from the data centers aren't just going to be there, or aren't going to be as constrained and can balance everything out pretty well. Due to that big surge in demand, everyone's got hardware, there isn't as need for it. Of course, there's always going to be a need for high-end enterprise hardware, but that massive demand, I think, will drop eventually. But who knows, I could be completely wrong. But anyway, that is another sad story in the world of DDR5 memory about how you definitely cannot buy it, especially even if you were to buy a retail kit that was already heavily inflated just due to manufacturing pricing and supply constraints. The fact now we have to deal with scalpers who don't even want to sell back to you trying to build a gaming PC at home. It's all going directly to businesses. So the fact that you can't even do that because businesses then can scalp it up, and then they can sell it to businesses for even more than what they can scalp out of a retail consumer, which is already skyrocketing and ridiculously high as it is. Yeah, there's just going to be no hope for the world as we know it. Anyway, that's going to be it for today's video. Let me know all your thoughts and opinions around the topic in the comments down below. What do you think of the current state of the DDR5 market? What do you think of the whole state of AI scalper bots buying up all the RAM as well, not just supply contracts behind dark rooms and closed doors with people in suits, it's also bots making sure you can't get your RAM too. Let me know all your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. Anyway, I have been Madison Jordan from MSC Tech. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in another one soon. Goodbye for now.